You ever have one of those moments where something feels off, but you don't realize it until it's way too late? That was me with a plate of cookies. It started so simple, so ordinary. My daughter, Ellie, had just turned 8, and I wanted the day to be perfect. Balloons, homemade cake, and that silly unicorn banner she begged for. We didn't have much, but what we had was love. Around noon, my sister Jenna dropped by, smiling, perfectly dressed as always, holding a white box tied with a pink ribbon. "For the birthday girl," she said, handing it to Ellie. Inside were cookies, neat golden, dusted with cinnamon sugar, each one shaped like a heart. A small note sat on top. "Happy birthday. Eat as many as you like." Ellie's eyes lit up, and I swear I could have cried just seeing her that happy. Jenna hugged her tight, said she had errands to run, and left. We didn't think much of it. That evening, we sat on the couch watching movies, eating cookies straight off the plate. They tasted good, but something about the aftertaste stuck with me. Bitter, maybe? I brushed it off, thinking it was just me being picky. The next few days were busy. Work, school, life. The cookies sat half-eaten on the counter until Caleb, Jenna's son, stopped by after school. "Can I have one?" he asked, and I laughed. "Take all you want, buddy. Your mom made them." He did, finished every last one. Later that night, my phone rang. "Jenna." Her voice was cheerful at first. "Hey, just checking. Did Ellie like the cookies?" I smiled, wiping down the counter. "Oh yeah, she loved them, but your kid came over and finished the rest." I laughed, expecting her to join in. She didn't. There was a pause, then a sharp inhale, and then screaming. I'll never forget that sound. "What did you say?" Her voice cracked, panicked, almost hysterical. "Caleb ate them?" I froze, my stomach twisting. "Jenna, what?" But before I could finish, the line went dead. I stood there, phone in my hand, heart pounding, staring at the plate that had once held her cookies. For the first time all week, they didn't smell like cinnamon and sugar anymore. They smelled like something was terribly, terribly wrong. Jenna had always been the golden one. Even when we were little, she somehow made perfection look effortless. Straight A's, prom queen, the one everyone admired. I was the quiet sister, the one who worked hard just to be noticed. Our parents never said it outright, but it was obvious who they favored. I told myself it didn't matter. Families aren't competitions, right? But standing beside Jenna always made me feel like the background of her perfect picture. When our parents died, it was me who handled the estate, the funeral, the endless paperwork. Jenna showed up late, cried beautifully for the crowd, then left early because it was too painful. Still, when her marriage fell apart a year later, I opened my door. She moved into my guest room with Caleb, swearing it was just temporary. I cooked, cleaned, helped with her job applications, even babysat so she could get back on her feet. For a while, it felt like maybe we were finally sisters again, not rivals, not strangers. But slowly, the cracks started to show. Jenna would make little comments, the kind that slid under your skin and stayed there. "Ellie's so lucky," she'd say, watching my daughter play. "She doesn't know how easy she has it." Or, "You let her talk to you like that?" I'd never allow Caleb to disrespect me. She'd rearrange things in my kitchen to help, redo Ellie's school hairstyle to fix it, and constantly point out ways I could do better. It was always framed as love, but I could feel the judgment in every word. Once, I found her in Ellie's room, going through her drawings. She smiled when I asked what she was doing. "Just tidying up." "You really should keep a closer eye on her," she said. I brushed it off, but something about her tone made me uneasy. I wanted to believe she cared, that she meant well. But there was something possessive in the way she watched my daughter, something sharp behind her smiles. I convinced myself I was imagining it, that old sibling insecurity playing tricks again. I had no idea then that jealousy can hide inside kindness, waiting patiently for the moment it finally gets to bite. The day Jenna brought those cookies plays in my mind, like a loop I can't escape. She'd shown up unannounced, her usual confident smile in place, holding a pastel box tied with perfect ribbons. The smell hit before she even opened it, warm sugar, cinnamon, that cozy scent that makes you forget to question anything. Ellie ran over instantly, bouncing with excitement. "Aunt Jenna made these for me?" she squealed, her little hands already reaching for one. Jenna laughed, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Of course, sweet girl. Eat as many as you like," she said, her voice soft, her eyes fixed on me. It felt off, but I ignored it. That was my mistake. I always ignored the small things when it came to her. That evening, Ellie sat cross-legged on the floor, crumbs on her shirt, telling me how these were the best cookies ever. I took one just to see what the fuss was about. The flavor was perfect, sweet, buttery, but then came a faint bitterness at the back of my tongue. Nothing alarming, just odd. I remember frowning and setting the rest down, deciding maybe it was too much cinnamon. The days passed in their usual blur. Work, school runs, dishes. The cookies stayed in their little box on the counter until Caleb stopped by after school. "Mom made these, right?" he asked, already grabbing one. I told him to help himself. He smiled, thanked me, and that was that. 3 days later, my phone buzzed. "Jenna." Her tone was chipper at first, almost too light. "Hey, did Ellie like the cookies?" she asked. I laughed, distracted, telling her Ellie loved them, but that Caleb had come over and finished the rest. Silence. Then a sharp intake of breath. "What did you just say?" she whispered. I repeated myself, confused. Her next sound wasn't confusion. It was raw panic. She screamed, a sound so wild it made my heart stop. "No, no, no," she shouted, her voice breaking. "Caleb, he ate them?" Before I could even respond, the line cut. The phone slipped from my hand. For a second, everything went quiet, like the world had exhaled and forgotten to breathe again. I drove straight to Jenna's place without thinking, my hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. She wasn't answering her phone, and something in that scream wouldn't stop echoing in my head. Her street looked the same as always, quiet, too perfect, but when I pulled up, her house felt wrong. The curtains were drawn in the middle of the day, and the porch light flickered, even though it was still bright outside. I knocked, called her name. Nothing. The second time, I heard movement inside, fast, nervous, like someone pacing. "Jenna, it's me," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Please open the door." "What's going on?" Through the narrow window beside the door, I caught a glimpse of her. She looked nothing like herself. Hair a mess, skin pale, eyes wide like she'd seen something she couldn't unsee. There were cleaning bottles scattered across the floor, paper ripped to shreds on the table, the oven light still glowing behind her. She froze when she noticed me looking in. "Jenna, talk to me," I pleaded. "You're scaring me. Is Caleb okay?" For a long moment, she just stared, trembling. Then, in a voice that barely sounded human, she whispered, "You weren't supposed to eat them." My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice cracking. Her lips trembled. "They weren't for Ellie," she said slowly, her words shaking as much as her hands. "They were for you." It took a second for the meaning to sink in. My mind rejected it, twisted it into something else, anything else, but her face told me it was true. I felt sick, every breath heavy and cold. "Jenna, what did you do?" I whispered. She took a step back, eyes glassy with tears, then slammed the door shut so hard the sound rang through my chest. I banged on it, shouted her name, begged her to open up, but all I could hear inside was the faint hum of the oven and her muffled sobs. When I finally turned to leave, I caught my reflection in her window, shaking, ghost pale, just like hers. And for the first time, I realized that whatever I thought I knew about my sister had just died behind that door. The next morning, my phone rang before sunrise. It was a neighbor of Jenna's, her voice shaking. "It's Caleb, he's in the ambulance. They think it's food poisoning." I didn't even grab a jacket before running out the door. My heart pounded the whole drive, every red light feeling like a punishment. When I reached the hospital, the smell of antiseptic hit me first, sharp, sterile, unforgiving. They had him in the ER, surrounded by machines and nurses. He looked so small on that bed, tubes in his arms, his skin pale and clammy. I froze in the doorway, guilt flooding every corner of me. I had been the one who told him he could eat the cookies. My voice had been the one that said it was fine. Jenna was already there, her face streaked with tears but her eyes hard as glass. When she saw me, her expression twisted into something almost feral. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly, but her tone carried enough venom to cut through the chaos around us. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. She stepped closer, lowering her voice until only I could hear her. "That should have been you," she whispered. The words hit harder than I expected. I wanted to believe she didn't mean it, that it was grief, shock, anything but intent. But something in her tone made my stomach turn. Hours crawled by. The doctor finally approached us, his face unreadable. "He's stable for now," he said, but it was close. He explained they'd found traces of a homemade compound in his system, something chemically unstable, like a mixture that had gone wrong. "Most likely accidental contamination," he added gently. Jenna didn't say a word. She just sat there, staring straight ahead, her fingers digging into the arms of her chair until her knuckles turned white. I tried to tell myself it was a mistake, that maybe she'd used an old ingredient, that this wasn't what it seemed. But every time I looked at her, every time I remembered the way she screamed on the phone, the words replayed in my head. They were for you. And suddenly, accidental didn't feel like the right word anymore. A few days after Caleb was released, I found myself cleaning the kitchen just to keep my mind from spiraling. Every time I wiped a surface, I saw those cookies again. How normal they'd looked, how easily I'd trusted them. That's when I noticed Jenna's old purse sitting under the counter, half tucked behind a stool. She must have left it the day she brought the cookies. My first instinct was to drop it off at her place, but something told me to look inside. Her usual chaos filled it, receipts, lipstick, loose change, but at the bottom was something out of place. A small glass vial, sealed tight, with a faded white label printed with chemical codes and her old company's logo. I rolled it in my hand, trying to convince myself it was nothing serious, but the warning symbols on the label said otherwise. My pulse quickened. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Jenna used to work in a pharmaceutical lab before she lost that job. She'd mentioned testing new compounds, sedatives, pain relievers, things most people shouldn't touch. The thought made me nauseous. The next morning, I drove across town to see Dr. Reed, an old friend of my late husband. He was quiet as he examined the vial, holding it up to the light. When he finally spoke, his tone had changed. "Where did you get this, Mara?" I told him the truth. He sighed heavily, jotting notes on a pad. "This isn't something anyone should have," he said. "It's an experimental sedative, not approved for use. In small doses, it slows the heart. In large ones," he trailed off, then met my eyes. "It can stop it." The room spun for a moment. My throat went dry. The aftertaste from that cookie flashed in my memory. The bitterness I'd brushed off, the way Jenna's eyes lingered when I took a bite. I felt a cold wave of realization crawl up my spine. She hadn't been trying to hurt Ellie. The cookies weren't meant for my daughter at all. They were meant for me, for a quiet evening between sisters, for me to die smiling over something she baked with love. I drove home in silence, the vial burning in my pocket like proof of how blind I'd been. I couldn't carry the truth alone anymore. After days of silence, I went to Jenna's house, the same one she'd hidden behind that locked door. She opened it this time, though barely. Her face looked hollow, her eyes rimmed red. For a moment, I thought she might deny everything, pretend it was all in my head. But when I placed the vial on her table, she froze. Her breathing changed shallow, sharp. "Where did you get that?" she whispered. "You left it at my house," I said. My voice came out steadier than I expected. "You were going to use it on me, weren't you?" She laughed then, not out of humor but disbelief. "You think everything's about you, don't you?" she said, her tone twisting. Even now, I waited, and something inside her broke. "You took everything from me, Mara," she spat. "Everything." Her words poured out like venom that had been waiting years to escape. "Mom and Dad always looked at you like you were their miracle. You got the love, the house, the good husband, the daughter who adores you. And me? I was the one who had to be perfect just to be seen." Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. "When Mark left me, he said he wished I were more like you. Do you have any idea what that feels like? To be compared to someone who's done nothing but take." She stepped closer, eyes glassy with rage and grief. "Even Caleb looks up to you more than he does to me. I just wanted it to stop. I wanted things to be even, for once." The words hit harder than any scream could have. "So you thought killing me would fix that?" I said quietly. Her shoulders trembled. "You were supposed to eat them," she whispered. "You were supposed to go peacefully. I just wanted it to stop hurting." There was no logic in it, just a woman so twisted by envy she couldn't see past it anymore. I felt more hollow than angry, realizing how long she'd been carrying that poison. Not in the cookies, but in herself. When I left, she didn't stop me. She just sat there, staring at the vial, the weight of her own words crushing her. And for the first time, I understood she hadn't wanted to kill me out of hate. She wanted to destroy the reflection of everything she believed she'd lost. The investigation began quietly, almost like a whisper that refused to fade. When the hospital toxicology report came back, the results confirmed what I already knew. The same compound found in Jenna's vial was in Caleb's system. The doctor called it a rare chemical agent, but the police recognized it as controlled material. From that moment, everything spiraled. Detectives came to my door, polite but firm. They asked about Jenna's background, her work history, the day she brought those cookies. I told them everything, every visit, every strange comment, every time she crossed the line. It felt strange, speaking about my sister like she was a stranger, but I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. When they asked if I had any proof, I handed them my phone. It held months of texts and voicemails, her apologies that didn't sound like apologies, the late-night messages dripping with resentment. And then finally, I gave them the vial. Watching the officer seal it in a plastic evidence bag felt like sealing a coffin. Jenna denied everything, of course. Claimed she'd never seen the vial before, said I planted it to ruin her. Her voice, once so steady, cracked when they mentioned Caleb. That was the only time she faltered, when she realized her own plan had nearly taken her son instead of me. They arrested her 2 days later. No drama, no chase, just quiet defeat. I stood by my window as the car pulled away, lights flashing across the street. Ellie watched too, not understanding, just clutching my hand. "Why isn't Aunt Jenna coming back?" she asked softly. I couldn't find the right words. How do you explain betrayal that deep to a child who still believes family means safety? The house felt colder after that. I thought I'd feel relief, but all I felt was emptiness. There was no satisfaction, no justice that could undo what she'd done. The truth had finally caught up to her, but it didn't feel like revenge, it felt like loss. At night, when the silence stretched too long, I'd hear Ellie whisper in her sleep, asking if Jenna still loved her. And that's when it hit me. Some wounds don't end with an arrest. Some just linger, heavy and quiet, long after the door closes behind the one who caused them. 3 days after her arrest, Jenna's name filled the local news like a bad dream replaying on every channel. The headline didn't use words like murder or attempted, just domestic poisoning investigation. They made it sound distant, clinical, nothing like the storm that had torn through our family. I couldn't bring myself to sit in that courtroom. I'd already watched her destroy herself once. I didn't need to see it again. Still, the thought of her standing there, wrists bound, surrounded by people judging the shell of who she used to be, haunted me. The prosecutor called that morning to say Jenna had changed her plea. Guilty. She'd done it after hearing from the doctors that Caleb might never fully recover. That whatever she'd put in those cookies had left damage that couldn't be undone. Her own son, carrying the weight of her mistake. I spent that day at the kitchen table, the same place where everything had started. I wrote my victim statement on a yellow notepad, the words shaking as they formed. You baked poison into love and called it sisterhood. It wasn't for the judge, not really. It was for me, for the part of me that still couldn't understand how she'd crossed that line. Ellie sat nearby, humming softly while she mixed cookie dough with her little hands. She still loved baking, no matter what it reminded me of. When she pulled the tray from the oven, she waited, like she always did now, for me to take the first bite. Only then would she smile and eat one herself. It broke me a little every time. That night, the statement sat folded on the counter, unsigned. I didn't know if I'd ever send it. Maybe forgiveness wasn't something that came with paperwork. Maybe it was just learning to live with the ache. When Ellie hugged me before bed, she whispered, "Aunt Jenna's sick, right? That's why she hurt us." I nodded, unable to answer out loud. And as I tucked her in, I realized that innocence, once cracked, never quite seals again. It just learns how to carry the fracture quietly. Months passed, though time didn't heal much. It just softened the edges of everything sharp. Ellie's next birthday came around quietly. No big party this time, no balloons, no decorations that screamed celebration. Just the two of us, baking a small cake together in the same kitchen where laughter used to echo. She'd grown cautious in ways children shouldn't have to. Every ingredient she touched, she'd ask, "Is this safe, Mom?" And I'd smile through the ache, assuring her it was. The morning sun spilled across the counter as I poured her cereal, pretending the day felt normal. Then she ran in from the front door, holding something in her hand. "Mom, this was in the mailbox," she said, eyes bright with curiosity. I turned the small white envelope over. No stamp, no return address, nothing but her name written in looping handwriting I knew too well. My stomach tightened before I even opened it. Inside was a single card. No decorations, no glitter, just 3 words written in blue ink. "Happy birthday, you." For a second, everything went still, the air, the light, even my heartbeat. That handwriting was burned into memory, no matter how much I wanted to forget it. I looked out the window, half expecting to see someone watching, but the street was empty. Jenna was gone, locked away, yet somehow her presence clung to us like smoke that refused to clear. Ellie tilted her head. "Who's it from?" she asked, innocent and unguarded. I forced a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Just an old memory, I said softly, taking the card from her hand. I walked to the sink, struck a match, and held it to the corner of the paper. The flame caught quickly, curling the edges until the words vanished into black ash. The smell was faintly sweet, sugar and smoke, a cruel reminder of everything we'd lost. Ellie watched silently, her small fingers gripping the counter. When it was done, I turned to her, brushed a strand of hair from her face, and whispered, "We're done with cookies this year." She nodded without asking why. And in that fragile quiet, I realized healing didn't mean forgetting. It just meant choosing not to taste the past again. Do you think I did the right thing by burning that note and cutting Jenna out for good? Or should I have tried to forgive her? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like mine.